Murphy. Together, my co-host Dr. Pat and I will introduce you to a different way to think about change, not as something to fear or resist, but as a gift. Join us the second Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Subscribe, share, and start your journey to mastery at johnjmurphy.org.
What if your training isn't enough? The Multicultural Mindset Podcast invites counselors and
Welcome to the Flourish Frequency, the show where we activate and amplify the frequencies of success, joy, and abundance. I'm your host, Beth Larson, a high-performance and quantum success coach. If you're ready to ditch the hard hustle and embrace a more effortless flow, then this is the show for you. Together, we'll tap into quantum thinking, harness the laws of the universe, and unlock the secrets to living a life of more. More joy, more energy, more passion, more money, and more meaning. No more simply surviving, we're going beyond thriving. It's time to flourish. The Flourish Frequency Show starts now. Yes, welcome back to the Flourish Frequency, and I am your host, Beth Larson. And today, for today's episode, I want to start with a question. Have you ever noticed that there are times in life where everything feels just harder than it should? You're working, you're showing up, you're doing all the things, and yet somehow it kind of feels like you're pushing a boulder uphill. And then there are other times when life seems to flow differently. The right conversations happen just like exactly at the right moment, or you meet the person that you didn't even know you needed to meet. They just show up and it ends up being exactly the conversation and the person that needed to be in your orbit. Or maybe it's a book that falls into your hands that contains the answer that you've been searching for. Or an opportunity that appears seemingly out of nowhere. Or maybe you think about somebody and they call. And you ask a question and the answer arrives before you've even finished looking for it. So what is that? Some people call it luck. Some people call it coincidence. Carl Jung called it synchronicity, the experience of meaningful coincidences that seem just too perfectly timed to ignore. Whatever you call it, most of us can say that we've experienced it at some point. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because what if synchronicity isn't random? What if it is the byproduct of something bigger, which is magnetism? What if those moments are actually clues that something inside of you has become more magnetic, become more coherent, more aligned, more fully expressed? And it's not that life suddenly started playing favorites. It's not because the universe decided that you are finally worthy. It's because you become more available to what wants to meet you, to meet your energy back. And that's what makes this particular week so interesting. The title of the show is about cosmic alignment. So you might be asking, well, what does that have to do with synchronicity and magnetism? Well, we're standing inside of a powerful window of cosmic alignment this particular week. And it's this window that invites us to become conscious of our own magnetism. So at the beginning of this week, we started with a super new moon in Gemini on Sunday, the solar transit of Gene Key 15, which carries the gift of magnetism, that starts tomorrow. And then at the end of this week, we have, of course, the summer solstice. Well, technically, it's the beginning of next week on Sunday. And that is happening at the peak of the Gene Key transit. So it's like an extra lighting up of that magnetic energy. Now, I don't believe that these events are creating magnetism for us. What I do believe is that they create the opportunity for us to notice it and for us to cultivate it, for us to become more aware of what amplifies it and what diminishes it within our own lives, and to pay attention to the places where we're actually leaking our energy and we're leaking our very own magnetism, and the places where we actually create more of it. Because when magnetism increases, synchronicities often seem to increase right along with it. And that is what we want to explore today. So we're going to talk about these powerful cosmic events, what magnetism actually is and what amplifies it and what weakens it, and how you can consciously work with this energy to become more fully expressed yourself, to experience way more of those synchronicities, to experience more of the flow of life instead of those times of having to push a boulder uphill. Because in my experience, that's what magnetism really is. It's not becoming someone else, it's becoming more of who you already are. So let's talk more about this cosmic alignment. Like I said, we're not looking at a single event here. We're looking at a sequence, a progression throughout the entire week. The beginning of the week, there's an opportunity to plant seeds, right? That's what new moons are traditionally there for, is to plant these new intentions, new seeds. And then we move into the magnetism, the energy of that magnetism. And then at the end of the week, we have an opportunity to really embody it. And so, like I said, it began with the super new moon. So on Sunday, we experienced that super new moon in Gemini. Now, most people have heard by now of a super moon. In case you haven't, what does that actually mean? Usually we're hearing it in relationship to a super full moon, right? Because it has to do with the distance that the moon is from Earth related to its orbit, okay? So what happens with a full moon when it's a super full moon is it will appear larger and brighter because it's closer to Earth. I remember once I was driving back to New York City from the Catskills, and as I was driving down the highway, I'm coming out of the mountains and I'm driving down, and I literally looked, it happened to be a super full moon, and it looked like I was literally going to drive right into the moon. That's how huge it looked. It's no bigger than the moon ever is. It's not about the fact that it's actually bigger, but it looks so much bigger and it feels so much larger when you're feeling that energy. A super new moon operates through the same mechanics. You don't see it the way you see a super full moon, but you can definitely feel its effects. Its gravitational pull combines with the sun, and it creates an actual stronger pull on the tides in the ocean here on Earth. So symbolically, like I was saying before, new moons have always represented beginnings, planting seeds, setting intentions, new possibilities. And Gemini adds another layer here. Gemini is an air sign, and it influences communication, perspective, curiosity, learning. It influences identity and how we express ourselves, the stories that we tell about who we are. So it makes it a really powerful time here to ask, when you look at this particular super new moon, in relationship to yourself, what story am I ready to rewrite? What identity am I claiming for myself? For me, this new moon coincided with something that I've been sensing for several months now. And, I've been sharing here on the show in the last few months, everything that's kind of been coming through in terms of downloading a lot of things related to the Flourish codes and the body of work that I do. The membership program that I have was one of those things that actually I realized it was time for its own evolution, right? When I first started the membership, I think it was about 4 years ago, it was called Flourish Alchemy, and it was a place where magic happens. But it really was a place for me to have my monthly workshops, for me to actually teach and share that content. And it's evolved so much over the last 4 years, very intentionally, very purposely. And so it was time for a new iteration of it, a new evolution of it, and a new name for it. And I chose Sunday, the new moon, to actually announce and to inaugurate the Flourish Field, formerly known as Flourish Alchemy. But it was more than just a semantic name change. What really shifted was my understanding of what this work is ultimately about and what I kept envisioning and seeing for this community. The field is a place to plant yourself when you're ready to grow, when you're ready to evolve, when you're no longer willing to stay confined by old identities, by old limitations, or old ways of being. It's an entry point into my world, definitely. If somebody's not ready to go into a coaching or a coaching container, coming into the field is a perfect place to start. But more importantly, it's an environment that's designed to support, to nurture, and to nourish you as you move through the stretch that growth inevitably requires. Because growth is beautiful. And growth can be really wildly uncomfortable sometimes. And every expansion really asks something of us. It invites us to lean in. It asks for more courage, more trust, more capacity, more willingness to become. And the field exists to support that process, the Flourish field. But the bigger vision that I have for it that keeps popping into my head also is something that goes beyond just the individual. You know, as these Flourish codes really awakened in me, I recognized that there was a very big distinction between the states of thriving and flourishing. You know, I've identified that there's 4 different stages that we can be in at any point in time. And I've spoken about this in a previous show. But you can be in the state of surviving, you can be in a state of striving, or you can be in a state of thriving or even flourishing. I want to speak here for a moment on the thriving and the flourishing because they are very distinct. And I think there was a point in time where I thought flourishing was just beyond thriving as an individual, and I didn't even fully understand it myself. But as these codes were downloading, I realized the distinction, the difference. Thriving is where we master ourselves, where we master our habits, our emotions, our mindset, our energy. It's where we are invited to expand our capacity to hold more so we can have more. And in doing so, it's also where we experience our own personal fluorescence, our own gifts that start to burst into bloom. That's what fluorescence means, bursting into bloom. And that's important work. But flourishing is where our growth expands outside of us. I want you to think of it like this. A flower blooming is beautiful, but a field blooming is magnificent, and it creates an entire ecosystem. In an ecosystem, success isn't isolated, it's amplified. Your expansion creates permission for somebody else's expansion. Your courage inspires somebody else's courage. Your growth contributes to the health of the greater whole. And it's not because you're trying to teach anyone something else, or it's not because, you know, you're trying to make anything happen for anyone else. It's not because you're trying to fix anyone else. It simply happens because a fully expressed life naturally encourages more life. And there's a compound effect that occurs. And just like in a big field of flowers, there's pollination. Just like the bees and the butterflies are attracted to a flower in full bloom, in even more so in a whole field of flowers. When you are in your full expression, being your most authentic, expressed self, you attract those pollinators. You attract the resources, the relationships, the opportunities that actually expand you beyond your own effort. And that's the larger vision of the Flourish field for me. It's not just a membership, it's an ecosystem. And as I said before, it's an entry point for some people to come in, but it's also a place where for every one of my programs, if somebody is doing one-on-one coaching with me, or if they're in a group container or taking a program, during the time that they're in that, they're going to get access to the field. because the field is a place to help ground them. The field provides structure and support. And what I have recognized for sure for every one of my clients that takes advantage of the sessions in the field, it always amplifies and magnifies the work that we do together. So that's the field, the flourish field. And that was the seed that I chose to plant during this new moon. And now I get to nurture it. I get to trust. I get to watch it grow. So let's talk about Gene Key 15. Tomorrow, the sun is moving into Gene Key 15. If you listened to last month's episode, you know that this gene key played a significant role and inspiration behind my program Fluorescence that I just launched. We're in the middle of that program right now. And it was this time last year that actually was what began my entire journey in relationship to this gene key. So it was during the transit last year. Now, I will tell you that I wasn't totally consciously aware of that at the time. This is one of those, famous Steve Jobs moments of you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. So I can tell you that looking backwards, it totally makes complete sense now where this all began. But here we are again, we're transing it. And this year, when I was launching it, there was a slight delay in the launch, and it ended up being perfect because it ended up being in the month of the transit. So here we are in the middle of the program. It's a 5-week program. We're 3 weeks in. And this week, the module was all about magnetism because, again, that's the gift of this gene key. The siddhi, or the divine gift, the divine gift that expresses itself when you lean into your magnetism, is fluorescence. It is life bursting into bloom. It is these synchronicities that start to begin happening and things that maybe it's work that's meant to come through you or creative expression that's meant to come through you that you just can't stop. And you don't want to because it's life, it's expressing itself. Now, whether this gene key exists in your own personal profile or not, the transit itself invites all of us into relationship with this energy, which raises an important question. What actually creates magnetism? Most people think magnetism is about attracting more or charisma, right? To an extent, that's true, but it's more than that. Magnetism isn't so much something that you have to add or something that you have to do. It's something that you uncover, right? It's something that's already in you that you get to turn up and amplify. Now, we're going to explore this more in the next segment after we take a break. But before we do, I just want to touch on real quickly the summer solstice. Again, we arrive at the summer solstice at the end of this week, the beginning of next week. The longest day of the year, maximum light, maximum illumination. But something that I find interesting is that while most people think the solstice represents expansion, I would say yes, it does, but it's even bigger than that. It also represents a culmination, a turning point, right? Because from that moment forward, we start to move back into contraction. The moment expansion reaches its fullest expression, it begins its return. And nature understands something that many of us as human beings have forgotten, and that is that expansion and contraction are actually partners. They're not enemies, and contraction is not a bad thing when you are in right relationship with it. When you are in a flow with it, when you understand that it's part of the law of rhythm. And when you can do that, when you understand all that and you know how to work with that energy, your magnetism continues even in contraction. That doesn't mean you're magnetizing back negative things to you. It means that you're continuing to pull things in even when maybe you're not seeing the full path forward. So remember, expansion and contraction, they're partners, they're not enemies. The longest day of the year already contains the first seed of the longer night. Think about that. So that brings us back to magnetism, because true magnetism isn't endless expansion and it's never having contraction. What it is about coherence and alignment, and about being able to hold that tension when the contraction occurs, and creating even intentional tension for yourself between where you are and where you're going, where you want to be. As you move forward and you start to express yourself fully, that version of you that's trying to emerge, that next level of you, if you can hold the tension in a way that creates leverage and momentum without collapsing back, then that brings you into a much bigger expansion overall. I want you to think about this for a second. A rose doesn't attract bees because it's striving harder than the other flowers in the field. It attracts because it's fully expressing its nature. It's being its true self. It's allowing its radiance to come through. That distinction is very important. So we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, let's talk about more about this magnetism piece, what it actually is and what might be quietly turning your magnetism off and how you can turn it back up. Okay, I'll see you back after the break.
Cut the shit. Stop struggling to feel present. Stop being taken advantage of. Express how you feel and stop making choices based on what other people think. Intuition Unleashed, a revolution in personal liberation podcast, is your go-to resource for combining guidance with mental health and spirituality and solving your questions about why you can't seem to catch a break and find your true happiness. And you can find more episodes at becknelson.com/podcast.
Are you struggling with unresolved emotions or recurring patterns? Tune into Beyond Birth Trauma, From Burden to Brilliance with me, Shannon O'Flaherty, on Transformation Talk Radio. On the second Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, we'll explore your own birth experiences and consider how they might be affecting your current life patterns to start your journey towards self-discovery and healing. For more information, visit shannonbtb.com. That's shannonbtb.com.
We are all born with gifts that we are meant to use to improve the world. Join me, Vicki Todd, and Dr. Pat on Shine Delusion Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries, each fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Shine Delusion Shine is a springboard to believing, dreaming, and thinking beyond the ordinary and a catalyst to living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life. For more information, visit VickiWorldArt.com.
Okay, we are back here at the Flourish Frequency. We're talking about this topic of magnetism. So, what makes someone magnetic? When I was thinking about this, one of my favorite story of mine came to mind that I just wanted to share. And maybe you've heard this before. It's a story about Marilyn Monroe. Many years ago, Marilyn Monroe was walking through New York City with a friend. And as they were walking through the busy streets, her friend noticed that nobody else was noticing her. She was dressed simply and she was walking down the street just like anybody else. And her friend commented that nobody seemed to recognize her. Supposedly, Marilyn smiled and replied, "Well, do you want to see her?" And then something changed. She adjusted her posture, she shifted her energy, she stepped into a different presence. And within moments, people began turning around, recognizing her, gathering around her. It wasn't that she went and popped into a restroom somewhere and changed her clothes or put on some lipstick. She turned on her magnetism. Or I think more accurately, she probably stopped turning it off. Now, whether every detail of that story is historically accurate, I don't know. It's not really the point. The point is that I guarantee that we've all experienced something similar. Maybe we weren't doing it intentionally, but we have all walked into a room before and felt disconnected. We've also probably all walked into a room feeling fully ourselves. And those experiences create completely different results. And why? Because magnetism isn't about your appearance. It's not a performance, and it isn't charisma. What it is actually coherence. It's what happens when your energy stops fighting itself. That's why I believe magnetism is often less about what you're doing and more about who you're being. And Gene Key 15, again, carries the gift of magnetism, but it also carries the shadow frequency of dullness. And dullness is a disconnection from life, from source. And the flourish codes, if you're operating in that surviving paradigm, then you're fully in that shadow of dullness. Maybe nothing feels wrong, but nothing really feels right either. You might just feel nothing. I mean, that's dull. It's numb, right? If you're operating from the striving paradigm, that dullness would show up a little bit differently. It's still, though, a disconnection from life and from source. It's making things harder than they need to be. It's a very by me consciousness at play where you think you have to have all the answers and things have to be done by you. So you're trying to figure it all out and you're pushing and you're forcing. What's interesting is underneath the surface, there's probably a part of you that's trying to avoid that dullness. And if you keep really busy, you don't actually feel the dullness. But the irony is, if you don't plug back into source and allow ideas and opportunities and all of those synchronicities to be flowing through you, eventually all that hustle and effort, it has diminishing returns and it leads to burnout and right back into dullness. When you are burned out, there's no life force there. Magnetism comes from source, and when you anchor into it, it requires a higher level of trust and faith in God, creator, the universe, source. But it's where you find your peace. And it's here in this place that you can hold tension in a powerful way. That tension between where you are and where you want to be. Right? That creates an inner tension, but you can hold it powerfully when you are in this thriving paradigm, right? When you're not striving, trying to figure it all out, there's chaotic energy that comes with that. When you're in the thriving paradigm and you're allowing source to work through you, you anchor into the center of that. That's where the peace is. That's where the calm is. It's like a tornado. Right? You're anchored into source at the center, and it creates that vortex of energy. And as that vortex of energy speeds up, it pulls energy into it, and it pulls with it the matching energies, the resources, the ideas, the circumstances, the people, the opportunities. That vortex is where the tension is held in a very powerful way and where your growth happens. It's here where you begin to thrive, where the magnetic pull gets stronger and stronger, and it results in the natural fluorescence that comes through. But if you're over and striving, you're not being held in the center. what will happen when that energy starts to whip around is you get whipped up into it. Your chaotic energy is actually attracting more chaotic energy, right? But when you're in the center of it, you're in the calm of the storm, the eye of the storm, plugged into source, that chaotic energy has to settle in around you and meet your energy. And it will settle down, but you have to hold it in the meantime. So that is where and how you become magnetic. Now, magnetism weakens when your energy becomes chaotic or incoherent. So it's going to weaken when you are trying to force things, when you are in the mindset of this has got to happen by me, or you're looking at everything as a problem and you have to figure it out. When you see something as a problem or an obstacle, you're not seeing the opportunity that's right there inside of it. An opportunity is expansive, an obstacle is contractive. One's going to strengthen your magnetism, the other one's going to weaken it. You weaken your magnetism when you say yes to something that you mean no to. Or vice versa, you say no to something that you really want to say yes to. You're weakening your own magnetism. You're weakening your magnetism when you stay inside of environments that drain you, that actually don't contribute to you. When you go into a place or an environment that is more about making you feel good than feel powerful. Now, I don't mean powerful in an ego way. I mean powerful in I am in the calm in the center of the storm. You're accessing personal power and source power, right? That's an environment that supports you through that discomfort. I was talking before about the field and the role that it plays. And the reason why I've created the way I've created it is because, again, growth is going to ask you to be uncomfortable sometimes. If you go into an environment that can't sit with you through the discomfort and support you through it, and instead just wants to kind of collapse back into relieving the discomfort by going back into your old patterns, right? That's not going to create growth for you. That's why it's so important that when we understand that relationship that we have with tension, that we can actually shift the way we engage it. But you need to have an environment that supports that, right? What else weakens your magnetism? When you are performing instead of being. So when you're trying to be something that you're not, instead of owning who you are. Now, when I say that, again, there's where you are now and the version of you that you're calling in. If you are performing, that's going to not be authentic. Like it's going to feel inauthentic. If you are actually embodying it, it may feel awkward at first, but there's a truth inside of it that you can feel. It's like when you watch some of the best movie stars in the world, right? The ones who are those, method actors, where they go so fully, deeply into the role that they become the role. That's what it feels like when you actually are in your most magnetic energy, because you're being your most authentic self and you're allowing that part of you to express itself. Versus when you see those actors who are not really good actors, you see them and they've either nailed one role and you see them playing kind of that same role in every role that they play, just because they've gotten good at the role, or you go and you watch the movie or the TV show and you can just tell it's just acting, right? It's not the same thing as fully embodying. So when you're performing, you're just weakening your own magnetism. If you're method acting, if you're actually embodying it, your magnetism is opening up. What also weakens magnetism is when you operate from fear instead of trust. When you disconnect from nature, that also weakens your magnetism. When you disconnect from your own body, when you are disconnected from your emotions and your feelings, you are weakening your magnetism because those emotions have powerful information for you. If you can't feel your feelings, then you're disconnecting from your own magnetism. I'm sure you've heard before, in order to heal it, you got to feel it. It's like you got to be willing to feel it. And sometimes those feelings are uncomfortable, but they don't need to be painful. They're only painful when we resist them. When we do all of these things, rather than creating coherent energy, right? Being that powerful energy in the middle of the storm that is so coherent that the energy around it comes into coherence with you. That's magnetism. But when you're doing all these other things that decrease your magnetism, it creates static, it creates noise, and it creates interference. For me, one of my own guiding questions that I ask myself whenever I'm in a growth mode, which I feel like is all the time, but sometimes I take a rest and kind of, like, I always think of it like you're climbing up a staircase and you're on a landing and you're just going to rest on the landing for a moment before you go up to the next level. Sometimes you're on that landing, and that's okay. That's a good place to be as well. But when I'm in a growth mode, the question I always ask myself is this creating coherence or is this creating noise? Because it's my job to come back into coherence. And all of our actions are doing one or the other. What amplifies magnetism? Authenticity. Being your most authentic expressed self is your most magnetic self. It's also the most repellent for those things that are not a match for you. So when you allow yourself to become more fully who you are, that's magnetic. Presence, being fully here in the moment, is magnetic. If your attention is everywhere else and it's getting distracted and you've got squirrel going on everywhere and your attention's off looking in every other direction, if you're trying to make inroads in your business but you're looking at what everybody else is doing and getting distracted, your magnetism is going like this. It's all chaotic, really, more so. Focus. Congruence between your actions and your intentions. And alignment with your next level. Choosing what feels expansive instead of what merely looks impressive. That's magnetic. And surrendering and trusting what wants to emerge. Not surrendering your dreams. This whole topic of surrender often comes up. When you're surrendering, you're not surrendering the dreams. Your dreams are desires that are planted in you. Trusting those dreams is part of the process. It's surrendering the how. Surrendering the idea that you know how it's all going to come together so you can allow that how to start to come through you, to come through that magnetic field that you're pulling in. And most importantly, being in the right field. I said this before. When you're in a field that cares more about just you being comfortable than growth, that's not actually helping you grow, right? You will have comfort, but you won't have the growth. You can be in an environment that allows you to actually hold your power through the discomfort, so it's not painful. Then you get to grow. An environment amplifies everything. The right environment amplifies possibility. The right environment, or the wrong environment, I should say, amplifies dullness. Which brings us back to Gene Key 15 and that shadow of dullness. Remember, that's about not feeling fully alive, not feeling fully engaged in life, not allowing your own vitality to express itself. When your vitality returns, your magnetism will naturally follow. So We're going to take another quick break here. When we come back, I want to make this practical. How do you actually work with these energies this week for yourself? We'll take another quick break and we'll be back in a moment.
Cut the shit. Stop struggling to feel present. Stop being taken advantage of. Express how you feel and stop making choices based on what other people think. Intuition Unleashed, a revolution in personal liberation podcast, is your go-to resource for combining guidance with mental health and spirituality and solving your questions about why you can't seem to catch a break and find your true happiness. And you can find more episodes at becknelson.com/podcast.
Are you struggling with unresolved emotions or recurring patterns? Tune into Beyond Birth Trauma, From Burden to Brilliance with me, Shannon O'Flaherty, on Transformation Talk Radio. On the second Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, we'll explore your own birth experiences and consider how they might be affecting your current life patterns to start your journey towards self-discovery and healing. For more information, visit shannonbtb.com. That's shannonbtb.com.
We are all born with gifts that we are meant to use to improve the world. Join me, Vicki Todd, and Dr. Pat on Shine Delusion Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries, each fourth Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Shine Delusion Shine is a springboard to believing, dreaming, and thinking beyond the ordinary and a catalyst to living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life. For more information, visit vickiworldart.com.
All right, welcome back here. We've been talking about magnetism and how we're making the most of it here. Before the break, I shared, or actually I should say throughout this whole program here, I've shared with you the way that I've been intentionally working with these energies this week. And very much intentionality behind it, right? When I looked at the month as a whole and I saw these different energies that were going to be happening, I took the opportunity to plug into this energy. So where I used the new moon energy to inaugurate the change in the Flourish field and the membership. And then I'm also working with this energy in the Gene Key for the fluorescence program as a whole, but also specifically this week, between this week and next week, the modules are specifically focused on these topics of magnetism and embodying it. But I also am using it for a couple of other things too. So I've got tonight's Meta Mastery workshop, which is one of the 3 workshops that I do every month in the field. So the Meta Mastery workshop, we're going to be exploring in magnetism in a different angle. So in the program in fluorescence, we're exploring individual magnetism. Here tonight, we're going to be exploring collective magnetism in the field. So whether somebody's in the fluorescence program or not, it doesn't matter. You can still plug into and really tune into this energy from a collective, understanding how that energy works and gets magnetized and magnified. Okay. And then on Sunday, it's going to be the solstice again. So that is the date that I chose to have this month's Somatic Magic Breathwork Journey, to celebrate the solstice and also ground these energies into our bodies and into our nervous system so we can freely express ourselves and be our most magnetic selves. It was perfect alignment for all of these things. Now, I don't go into every month letting the universe dictate where I'm going to have things. I look for the opportunities to plug certain things in, to see where things align, to allow things to actually have that extra flow of energy. A launch that I'm going to do a launch. It may just vary where that happens. If it's a perfect alignment, if there's an opportunity to really tune into that benefic energy. So let's talk about you. How can you work with these energies for yourself? Because awareness without participation does not create transformation, right? We can be aware of all the energy, but if we don't do anything with it, if we're not actually engaging with it, participating with it, you may feel like something's different this week, but you're not actually getting to use it, to work with it. So I want to invite you to think first and foremost about the seeds of intention. So the new moon has already begun, of course. That was Sunday. We still have some of that energy going on. There's never a wrong time to set intentions. You can always set intentions. But to maybe take a look at what has already begun this week for you. Were there some intentions that you actually did set earlier, or things that you put out earlier? Was there a conversation that's happened, or a decision that you made, or maybe an idea that surfaced? Maybe there was a commitment that you made, or a boundary that you put in place. Or maybe there's a dream that you have and you haven't actually taken the opportunity yet to say, I'm declaring this. I'm deciding it and declaring it. Maybe you've been leaving it up in the dream space and not actually bringing it down into your 3D reality because you haven't made the decision yet. All of these things are opportunities. And like I said, even though the new moon's already passed, it's a super new moon. There's still some energy from it. Take advantage of it now. Name it, acknowledge it, water it, whatever those seeds of intention are. Now, magnetizing. I want to invite you to go through and kind of do an energy audit in your life, right? Ask yourself, where am I leaking energy? Where is my energy chaotic or incoherent? Where am I forcing things in my life? Where am I performing instead of actually embodying? Remember, like I said, it's totally different. Think of the method actor versus the C-list actor, the D-list actor. Where are you dimming yourself? And maybe it's to make somebody else more comfortable, but you've been holding back. You've been downplaying yourself. There's an opportunity to plug back in and to turn up your magnetism. Choose one thing. Just one. You don't need 10 different things. Pick one thing, one place to practice becoming more coherent. One place to be more honest with yourself. One place to become more fully yourself. Tune into the energy and allow yourself to do it. And then embodying on the solstice. Get outside if you can. I know we've had a lot of crazy weather here over the past couple of weeks. I don't know if it's going to be sunny on the solstice for you or not in your area, but don't let that stop you. The sun doesn't stop being out there. There just may be some clouds in front of it, but trust that the sun is still there. You can still plug into that energy. Get outside if you can, even if it's raining, right? Let the rain wash away any negative energy, any incoherent energy if it's there. And plug into that solar energy, that source energy. Watch the sunrise. Watch the sunset. Put your feet on the ground. Move your body and receive the light. Let it fill you up. And then reflect on maybe what's bloomed since January in your world. Have you given yourself credit for it? We're just about, the solstice is here, but we're just about to go into the second half of the year. So it's a great time between this week and the first week of July to really reflect back on what has bloomed since January in your world and to give yourself full credit for it. What has reached full expression for you and what's still in process? And what's your next step? What are you completing? What are you becoming? And if you feel called to do this work in community, I'm going to invite you. Join me. Join me tonight for the Meta Mastery or Sunday night for the Somatic Magic Solstice Breathwork Activation. Again, these are 2 sessions that happen every month inside the field. Allow the field to support you. We'll have a link for the membership. As we wrap up here today, here's what I know, and here's what I want you to think about and leave you with. Most people are going to walk through this week unconsciously. They may feel something. They may feel the restlessness or the pull. They may feel an invitation from the universe and the energy. They may feel a shift, but they never stop long enough to ask why. Why am I feeling that? Or they may be in that dullness state or the overactivity in an attempt to avoid the dullness. So they're not slowing down enough to actually feel this energy, to actually attune with it, to come into harmony with the universe. But I don't think that's you because you're here, you're listening. And that tells me something. It tells me that you're willing to slow down and pay attention, that you're willing to participate, to become intentional about how you are moving through your life. This week offers a beautiful progression. Plant, magnetize, embody. Not someday. Do it now. Do it this week, right now. And whether you choose to do that inside the Flourish field or you do it on your own, don't let this week go past unnoticed. Meet it consciously. Participate in it and let it change you. If you'd like the support, the field is open. Inside, we'll continue these conversations with the Meta Mastery, the Somatic Magic, and then also we do once a month a program or a planning workshop called Forecast, Focus, and Flow that provides structure and support so that you can take those big dreams of yours and bring them out into your reality. And in this planning workshop, what's important is that we don't focus on planning your time and your to-dos. It's about leveraging your energy. We take a look each month about what are the things that are actually contributing to your energy, that are turning your frequency up, and what are the things that are actually taking your frequency down. What's turning up your magnetism, what's turning it down. And you have a choice point in each of those sessions where you get to make a decision. What am I going to do about that? If something is actually depleting my magnetism, if it's turning it down, what do I want to do about it? What choice do I want to make? And how can I bring more of the things that actually turn my magnetism up? How can I bring more of that into my week, into my month? When you look at your calendar for a week, you should be able to look at it and feel energized and feel excited. If you don't, that is a sign from the universe that you're out of alignment, right? You get to decide who gets your most precious resources, your energy, your presence and your time. So again, the link to the field will be in the show notes. Again, I'd love to have you join us if that feels good for you. I also want to make one final update here. Beginning next month in July, the Flourish Frequency will be moving to the fourth Thursday of each month. And it's also going to become a more focused 30-minute show with occasional longer shows or bonus episodes if I've got other people that I bring in. For me, this decision reflects exactly what we've been talking about here today. You know, I wanted to be able to actually turn up the magnetism, and to do that, that meant contracting time so that I could expand my energy, creating more impact through greater coherence. I've felt sometimes that I'm filling time with these longer shows, and I want to really respect your time. And I want to actually tune into that energy in me that says, like, I have a message to get out, but I want to be able to do it in less time, to be able to make a greater impact in less, right? To make the most of the minutes and the most of the moments, and not just fill time to fill time. So that was a decision that helped me feel really expansive again and to leverage that. So I hope that you will join me with the new time next month. Again, July, it's going to be the fourth Thursday of every month, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'm going to invite you to keep your flourish frequency high, to go out and be your most authentic, magnetic, beautiful self. And I will see you next month. Thank you for tuning in to the Flourish Frequency Show with me, Beth Larson. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and are leaving with a heart full of inspiration and a mind buzzing with the possibilities of more. Tune in every third Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more frequency boosting conversations. And if you want more help getting into your flourish flow and stepping into the possibilities of more, you can find me at BethLarsonCoaching.com. That's BethLarsonCoaching.com, Larson with an E.